Hi everyone, welcome to the game Devlog for Pyroot, an adventure game that spans an entire planet. About 2 weeks ago, I first announced my game and released the demo. I have about 20 minutes of gameplay so far, but it could be easily speedrun in under 5 minutes. I plan to show the game at MagFest in about a month, and I'd like to basically double the size of the game by then. So mostly what I've been doing is adding new features to help build out the first dungeon. So without further ado, let's get on to these new features. I'm going to talk more about the water in a minute. Let's start with the loop-the-loops. They work a little bit like the loops in Sonic the Hedgehog. You have to go around the top in order to get flipped around to the other side, and I can control how big they are. I added these spike blocks that come up out of the ground with a short delay and damage whatever is above them when they come up. Here's something called blink blocks that turn on and off periodically, and I can control their offset or speed. I've also added moving platforms where I can control their speed and how far they go, and if they go up or down or what they look like. I've also added some nice features to the editor, so things like moving platforms and blink blocks will appear in the editor as well, making it a lot easier to design the levels. I've also added a jumping type of enemy. Once they see the player, they'll try to jump towards you and deal damage when they touch you. I'll probably be adding more difficult kinds that maybe shoot at you or are faster. I've added some buttons that can be set to trigger doors or whatever I want. They can also be shot or touched by enemies, so there's a lot of options there for puzzles and stuff. The coolest thing I did was this water system, and it's very simple, but I think it looks pretty good, and I think it really gets across the idea that it's water. And I also have a basic buoyancy system here as well, so objects can be made to float on the water. The water system is pretty simple. First I place a water object that defines the top of the water, and it creates a list of points that get pulled towards neighboring points with a spring. And there's a lot of parameters to control, and I just kind of tweaked it so it would look like water. There's a bit of dampening, a bit of spring, and I also have tracking of whether an object is above or below the water level. And I can use that to apply buoyancy and also to apply splashing, splash effects and stuff like that when the water is shot at or touched or interacted with. Explosions can also affect the water. Let's turn the debug off. And objects can float on the water by checking how percentage-wise how much they are below the water and applying that times gravity in the reverse direction to counteract gravity. It seems to work pretty well. I've also made a couple other different kinds of liquids, like this acid that is another different type of water, and it'll damage you if you touch it. And I've also added some lava, which will do even more damage, and I tweaked the parameters of the lava a little bit so it's a little bit less fluid than the water itself. This is just a little test I made to throw some enemies into the lava, test them out. And that's what I got today. So what I plan to do for the next couple of weeks is continue adding a couple more features to the game, mostly more enemy types and variants on the current enemies. Like these rolling enemies will have a more intelligent type that will jump at you, attack you, maybe shoot you. Mostly what I want to do is build out the second half of the main dungeon. So that's going to give about another 20 minutes or so of gameplay and a final boss at the end, and then just continue to polish that for the next month. So thank you for watching, and check out my game if you can at pyroot.3d2k.com.